Alright, let's open up and take a look at an Anthem STR preamplifier, a 2-channel phenom. Alright, so my decision was made, circumstances provided, or allowed I guess. Today arrived the Anthem STR preamplifier. So let's open it up, take a look at it, go over some of the details and specs, and then talk about how I'm going to use it and how it's going to play into my home theater zones and all of that. So I've already cut it open. I got an Anthem box here, Anthem STR. This is just the preamplifier, it's not the integrated. So I just wanted the processor. I didn't need the amplifiers because I'm going to continue using the extra channels off of my Parasound A52 Pluses. So we got a nice double box here. Maybe it's better to set this on the floor. It's a bigger box than I thought, and I was kind of expecting. So what do we have? We have power cord. Just 2-prong, not 3-prong. We have a bag of goodies. I did buy this used. I'll talk about that in a little bit, the particulars. We have a full-fledged manual, warranty card, operating manual in 2 languages. We also have the remote. Ooh, this is nice. Metal, brushed metal. Pretty simple. Again, this is an audio preamplifier, focused on 2-channel or 2.1, 2.2 channel. So there's not quite as much going on there as a full-fledged receiver or home theater style device. We have the Anthem ARC system, which pretty much I expect this is just the tripod. Yeah. Tripod stand, cables. Oh, this is actually the microphone. So there's this style of microphone as opposed to this style of microphone that came with the AVM. I think this is a better higher end microphone, but I'm going to do my proper research. When it comes to running Genesis in the living room there, I'll have to decide which of these I want to actually use. Of course, I'll use whichever is better. A couple other small boxes in here. Cat5 cable. And a separately labeled USB cable, which would be for that black mic. So this one isn't USB-C, it's like mini USB to USB-A. The new style microphone is USB-C. So I don't think I'll end up using any of this ARC kit, quite honestly. I don't need the tripod. And again, I think the microphone that comes with the newer stuff is a better piece. More likely to use that. Alright, here we go. Let's take a look at the main guy here, meat and potatoes. Alright, so very much in the style of the MRX and the AVM units, the receivers and the processors that we have now, although more of a contoured front rather than a flat. The new models are kind of flat. But I think this set the design tone for what the MRX and the AVM models essentially turned into. Kind of its precursor of sorts. Now this is available both as just the preamplifier, which is what we have here, as well as an integrated version which has a pretty beefy 2-channel amp. So you can buy the integrated STR, you can buy the STR preamp, and then buy some separate Anthem amps if you want to. Flexibility and options in the offering. So in terms of the front panel, we have that display, again very reminiscent of what's on the MRX and the AVMs. You'll be able to see input information, volume, and so on. We've got a couple of buttons, menu select, previous button, a rotary knob, doesn't push, next button, mute button, and a power button. You can see through the air vents here You can see the circuit boards, that kind of customary Anthem red. Let's take a look at the back. Lots of inputs here. Again, this thing is basically a 2-channel processing phenom. So we've got our power cord connection. Again, 2-prong, not 3-prong. We have analog RCA outs for the front left and right channels, as well as 2 subwoofers, and this can treat them as independent subs. You can do a mono sub, or you can do basically stereo subs in the setup and in the processing and the calibration and such. There's a line out left and right for if you're feeding something else downstream, full bandwidth. And then awesome here, we also have the XLR connections for the main left and right and our subwoofers. I kind of wish now that my Triad rack amps for my subs had XLR inputs, and then everything would be able to be XLR. But I will be going XLR to the Parasound amps instead of the XLR to RCA kind of mix mash. We have a digital audio input section here, USB DAC, 1 XLR AES input, 2 coaxes, 2 opticals, and then we have analog XLR inputs for two front speakers and 2 subwoofers. We have a bunch of analog RCA inputs, 4 altogether. We've got a USB for updating, actually USB 2.0A, and the mini Ethernet for the network connection, RS-232, an IRN, and 1 trigger out. I wish they would have given multiple trigger outputs on this like they do with the newer, the AVM models and such. I'll have to end up triggering multiple amps, and I wish there was a discrete output. But in any case, I can Y the cable or something along those lines. And then the last inputs down here is our phono. We have both a moving magnet, an MM and an MC, a moving coil, and a chassis ground there as well. So again, made for music processing, made for audio, both analog and digital. All right, so let's talk for a minute about kind of what I'm integrating this with, how I'm going to be using it, why I bought it, why I was drawn to it, and those sort of concepts. So I would encourage you to go back and watch some of the Home Theater 2.0 particular videos on the channel and catch up on the vlogs. You can see all the work that I've done in my theater, and paves a bit of a roadmap for where I am with my system right now. But suffice to say, I have a living room 2.2 audio system. Right now it's comprised of a pair of in-wall full-cal 1000 series IW LCR6s and a pair of Triad bronze subwoofers. I have Rack Amp 300s, the newest model amplifier for the 2 Triad subs, their brand of amplifier. And powering those 2 full-cal speakers is a couple of extra channels off of my Parasound A52 pluses. I have a dual set of A52 pluses and an A31. 11 of those 13 channels drives full-cal 1000 series speakers in my theater, but the extra 2 amp channels drive those couple of speakers in the living room. And for the longest while now, the last few months or more, maybe several months even, I've been running kind of different levels of a Zone 2 setup, where with the AVM70 processor, I run the theater off of that, of course, as its main zone, and then use the 2-channel output and the Zone 2 HDMI output to switch my sources and run a common set of sources both from the theater and up to the living room. So, and the Zone 2's been working pretty well, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to try to accomplish with my systems, and particularly the balance of the 2 zones, and this is the final piece of that puzzle. So one thing is that the theater's awesome, and we use it for movies, I use it for games, and we enjoy it quite a lot. We cover it all here on the channel, but we use the living room more. The living room is the daily use. It's where we watch TV shows. It's where we listen to music. We actually probably play more video games in the living room than we do in the theater as well. I wanted to bring my living room spec basically up to parity with the theater spec. And I might talk about that concept in some more detail in some future videos, but suffice to say, getting the full-cal 1000 speakers up there to match the LCRs, the same speakers I'm using as LCRs in the theater, was a goal. Using the same Parasound amplification channels that I'm using, or amplification such that I'm using for the theater, but then using the same amp channels or the extra amp channels for the living room. Again, parity level. And I've been really enamored with the AVM70. I like how it functions, I like how it sounds, I like how the calibration features and all of that stuff works. So much so that I want to bring the same processing basically to the living room. But I don't have multi-channel system up there. Again, it's a 2.2. And so this device just fits perfect we're doing music listening up there. It's a 2.2 channel audio system. This is a 2.2 channel processor. It's a perfect match. I'm not overbuying to get another AVM 70 with all the extra capability. I'm not overbuying like an MRX receiver that I'm not going to use the amp channels, because I'm using the Parasounds and I don't need those amp channels. And so for purity and for my needs, like, this is just an ideal unit. And I really want to be able to run Anthem Arc in the living room. I want the results that I've gotten from using Arc to calibrate the theater have been exceptional. I think I've got a good handle on how to use it, how to tweak it, and how to get good value out of it. And I want to apply that to the living room. I think the living room really needs equalization. I find myself just kind of running without any EQ up there, often grabbing for a remote to turn things down or turn things up. You know, I want to improve the dialogue intelligibility as much as possible when we're watching shows and stuff up there, and be able to EQ a wider area. We have a big L-shaped sectional couch and such. And so I think Arc is a perfect solution for that. And again, maintaining that parity. Anthem processing in the theater, Anthem processing in the living room. Parasound amplification in the theater, Parasound amplification in the living room. Focal speaker quality in the theater, same Focal line, same exact speakers actually, in the living room. And so this is really the final piece kind of that puzzle. And I'm very, very much approaching, I think, a level of endgame for my spaces and for what I'm doing there. And this gives me more options as well too. If I do want to move into some vinyl, this will be all of the vinyl preamp and processing and such that I need. It's got all of the right connectivity. And so the problem of this, the holdback that I had for pulling the trigger on this right away though was the price. $42.99 MSRP, and these are actually really hard to get a hold of right now, like a lot of pieces of equipment. It's out of stock, unavailable, and such. And I wasn't actually really planning to pull the trigger on this, at least for right now. It was something that I was thinking about, maybe for several months from now, or maybe even into next year's new year or whatnot. However, I'm pretty active around AVS forum, and particularly in the Anthem threads related to the AVM 70 and the 90. And so there happened to be another forum member there that bought this, intending, I think, to use it in like a home theater bypass mode, in addition to having bought an AVM 90 for his setup. And after getting the 90 plugged in and set up and using it, basically came to the conclusion that it was unnecessary. Even for music, the AVM 90, the quality of the processing, the quality of that unit, the sound that it makes was so good that he didn't feel the need to maintain the STR preamp in the same setup and just stick to the 90 and let it do essentially all of his processing. So this thing popped up, or a mention about him selling it kind of popped up in the discussion thread, owner's thread, around the Anthem stuff. And so I jumped on it, happy with the price. For sure, a pretty solid reduction over new, which really pushed me in to go ahead and pulling the trigger on it. But I'm very excited to get this plugged in. Again, I think this will bring just a level of completeness, cohesiveness, and parity to everything that I'm doing. It's also going to break, or mostly break, the kind of the Zone 2 setup, because I don't want the sources really going through the Anthem anymore, being converted to analog, and then piping in here analog, being converted back to digital and such. I want to be able to have this thing do everything from the digital domain, do its processing, apply its filtering, apply Arc, Cal, and all of that, and then move things over to the analog. Stay tuned on the channel. I think there might be a little bit of a reduction of devices perhaps coming up, or maybe an optimization of what I'm using and where I'm using it and how I'm using it, in conjunction with splitting those zones out again and treating the theater as one space, treating the living room as another. And I'll be covering like the wiring schemas and how I operate a TV in the living room 40 feet away from all of the equipment in the rack, when some of those sources are down here and some of those sources are also up there. As always, just so much more to talk about, so much to tweak, so much to cover. And I'm also really interested to see how this integrates with the new capabilities that have been released for Arc Genesis, the auto delay setting, the subwoofer phase integration and all that. I hope that all of that works on this, and so I'm curious to see all of the capabilities that are being added to Arc Genesis also apply to this unit. That wasn't entirely clear when I bought it, but I'm hopeful that all of that works. We'll get this thing set up in the rack. I didn't see any rack ears, although I do see screws on the top here. I think I might just set this thing on a shelf or look and see if there is a rack mount kit for it. I did a little Googling, but I didn't find one. But I do have a local Anthem dealer shop where I bought my AVM 70, so I probably will check in there and see if this thing does have some ears to rack mount it right in the slot. So we're going to have a real nice stack here. The Apple TV home theater will stay up on top there. We've got the Kaleidoscape, and this empty shelf area on the shelf or with the rack mount is where the STR is going to go, which is nice. So it'll be right above the amplifiers for the subwoofers that are up there in the living room. Below that we'll keep the AVM 70, and then of course the Parasounds down below. So this full stack of processing, equipment, and amplification, it'll slot in quite nicely. And I'm actually pretty happy it's a 2U unit instead of doing the MRX or even another AVM, which would have been bigger and taken up more space kind of unnecessarily. So the 2U is perfect. So that's it. Anthem STR preamp. Again, I really wasn't expecting to have one of these things in my hands right now. I was content to wait probably several months to get a hold of one of these, and so I'm pretty gleeful, pretty joyful to have had the opportunity that popped up to snag this like I did. That's what really made it possible. So thank you so much, Muscles on AVS Forum. And yeah, I'm excited. Let's get this set up. If you have questions about this, you have questions about the setup, things that you want to see me talk about, describe, break down, whatever, in future videos, let me know. Post away in the comments, or go to jeremypyle.com and send in your questions. And once we get this set up and things really get stabilized, I'm really going to crank out more like dedicated reviews. Reviews for the AVM 70, reviews for the Arendal subwoofers, all that stuff is coming. So much content that I have in mind to make for the channel. So please stick with it. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Look down in the description for some ways to support the channel. And thank you so much for watching. Time to install.